Hi friends, this is Gautam. In this video tutorial, I am going to discuss about how to configure router on a sticky. Let's see. So you are more familiar with switches and VLANs. So you might know that you require a router if you want to communicate between the VLANs. So in this video tutorial, I will show you how you can use a router connected to a single switch as a router on a stick. Let's see. So this is my example scenario. So I am using one router. That router is connected to switch. From that switch I am connecting 4 PCs. So PC1 and PC2 belongs to VLAN 100 and PC3 and PC4 belongs to VLAN 200. So in a switch I created two VLAN. One is VLAN 100 and another one is a VLAN 200. So for VLAN 100, I am assigning the IP as 172.16.1.0/24 network, and VLAN 200, I will assign the IP as 172.16.2.0/24. So PC1 1.10 and PC2 1.20 and PC3 2.10 and PC4 2.20. Okay. So on this switch, so as mentioned earlier, VLAN 100 and 200 I created, and that there is only a single cable connecting between the router and switch. So router needs to access both VLANs. So the link between the router and switch should be a trunk link. So now it's possible to create a sub interface on a router. So these are the virtual interface. So while you're creating the sub interface, that interface are the virtual interface. So each sub interface we can configure an IP address. So basically it looks like this. So in first diagram, physical cable connected to the router between connecting between the router and switch. So this is the physically connected cable. But once you are creating the sub interface, it works like two virtual interface. So here we can see the physical interface port number is FA0/0. Here I am created sub interface, that is a logical interface FA0/0.100 and FA0/0.200. So you can pick any number that you like, but I decided to use the VLAN numbers. So where I am saying means here FA0/0 dot, then you have to give any decimal number. So here I mentioned 100 and 200. So this 100 belongs to VLAN 100 and this 200 belongs to VLAN 200. So that one only I mentioned in this slide. Okay, so now from the router point of view, so these are the configurations. Here's the what configuration looks like on the router. So in router, first of all, you have to unshare the physical interface and you no need to configure anything. Simply you can go to the physical interface and you have to give unshare that port and exit. That's it. Then afterwards you creating the sub interface. So the syntax for creating the sub interface is just go to the global mode, then you have to give interface and the interface name and select the port number. Then afterwards you have to put dot and you have to mention decimal value, any value you can give one by yourself, it's up to you. So in my example I am using 100, so this port belongs to VLAN 100. So next one I am giving encapsulation dot 1q space, then this number should be an VLAN number. So here I mention VLAN number as a 100 because this sub interface belongs to VLAN 100. Okay, now this command is very important in router on stick. Why means the in router we are creating two sub interface, but the router don't know which sub interface belongs to which VLAN. So that's why we are telling the router encapsulation dot 1q 100. So that means this sub interface belongs to VLAN 100. Next, as usual, you have to assign the IP address to the virtual interface. So that is 172.16.1.254 and subnet mask /24 exit. So same like I am creating another sub interface. So interface fast ethernet 0/0 dot, here I am mentioning 200 because this I am going to configure this sub interface to assigning for VLAN 200. And here also I mention encapsulation space dot 1q, then you have to mention the VLAN number. So here you are mentioning some other different number, means it won't work. So you have to mention the VLAN number. So I already decide this sub interface belongs to VLAN 200. So that's why I have to given VLAN 200, and this command tells the router this sub interface belongs to which VLAN. Then afterwards we have to assign the IP address. So IP address is 172.16.2.254 and /24 subnet mask. Okay, so above you can see my two sub interface, and I will assign the IP address to that sub interface. So IP address 172.16.1.254. So this IP address will be the default gateway for computers in the VLAN 100 and 172.16.2.254. So this IP address will be the gateway for computers in the VLAN 200. So one important command I mentioned earlier, encapsulation .1q. So there is no way for our router to know which VLAN belongs to which sub interface. So we have to use this command, and FA0 0.100 will belongs to VLAN 100, and FA0 0.200 that belongs to VLAN 200. Okay, then after configuring this configuration on the router, so we have to give show IP route. So here we can see I saw two network 172.16.1.0/24 and 2.0/24. So this is the sub interface FA0 0.100 and FA0 0.200. So you can see both sub interface in the routing table, and this allows the router to route between the two VLANs. So then afterwards you have to configure the computers so that the router's IP address for the corresponding VLAN is the default gateway. And this is the switch configuration. From the switch I am creating two VLAN. So go to the switch global mode. You have to create VLAN space 100. So syntax for creating VLAN 100, and you have to mention name. Any name is a user defined name. For VLAN 100 I mention IT and exit. Then again I am creating VLAN 200. So in global mode you have to give VLAN space 200. Then afterwards any name you have to give. So I am giving here a name CSE. Exit. This is the syntax for creating the VLAN from the switch. Then afterwards the switch that is connecting towards the router, so that port you have to configure trunk port, because in a switch we are creating two VLANs. So the two VLANs the router should access. So for that reason the switch connecting towards the router, so that port you have to configure trunk. So in my scenario FA0 that port is connecting towards the router, so I am configuring a trunk. So syntax for configuring trunk is switch port mode trunk and exit. Then afterwards FA0 and 3, these two ports are connecting towards the PC1 and PC2. So these two ports are connecting towards the end devices. So for that reason I am configuring switch port mode axis. So the end devices connecting port should be an axis port. So that's why I am configuring switch port space mode space axis. Then afterwards these two ports are belongs to VLAN 100. So now I am giving switch port axis VLAN 100. So after giving this command, these two ports are mapping to VLAN 100. Exit. Then FA0 and 5. These two ports are connecting towards PC3 and PC4 in my scenario. So these two ports are connecting towards end devices. So I am giving switch port mode axis, because end devices always should be an axis port. Next afterwards these two ports are mapping to VLAN 200. So syntax for mapping that port to VLAN is switch port axis space VLAN 200. Now these two ports are mapped to VLAN 200. So afterwards you have to configure the IP address in the PC1. IP address is 172.16.1.10 and subnet mask, and gateway should be subinterface IP of FA0 0.100. So that is 172.16.1.254. Same like in PC3 and PC4 you can configure corresponding IP address and subnet mask. Then afterwards you can configure the default gateway should be subinterface of FA0 0.200. So this interface IP 172.16.2.254. Then afterwards you are trying to communicate from PC1 to VLAN 100 to VLAN 200. It will be a communicating. So thank you friends. I hope you enjoyed this video. So if you have any more questions, just leave a comment below in the comment section. Thank you friends, and subscribe my channel for further updates. Thank you.